There we go. Hello everyone, welcome to another Friday here at Strange Loop Games. I am your lead game designer here at Eco, and we'll be chugging along and continuing on from where we kind of left off the playtest last time. And not a whole lot have been happening on my end there. I've been kind of swamped with fixing things for the tech tree and a lot of general polish and things that needing, and I'm also working on a slight kind of last big tech tree change before we can start really kind of just adjust and tweak the final numbers for from my side on the tech tree. Yeah, I'm just gonna cut straight through it, I think. So we are in the middle of the night here. So playtest as per those who have been here before. We are working on the update 10, or for the people that haven't been here, might not be completely up to date to what exactly is going on. We're running a playtest on White Tiger, which is our more custom moderated and conceptual official server that we have that is running a kind of preset government and preset laws that handles a lot, a pretty big encompassing constitution that regulates and kind of just cover your kind of basic rights and your universal income and so on and so forth to kind of keep the economy flowing, and Tiger's specific kind of take on how education and research works. So that's kind of White Tiger. White Tiger's peak eco gameplay. It hasn't been completely without its flaws, and it's also been in the long term of making. Like a few common questions we get regarding to bigger playtests, or in regards to Tiger, and you know why it's such a good place to be and or use for playtests and so on and so forth. It's because we're using a lot more of the civic systems than your average server would normally be exposed to without dedicated people that help navigate the jungle of the civic architecture. And it can get very in-depth, very complicated, but it can also be very lightweight depending on what you're trying to accomplish with it. Tiger is really designed to push the limits and borders of those systems, and it's done so phenomenally, and even more so with the civics that all the settlements changes that we've done in 10 that really allows servers like this, because there are a few more servers that are bigger that try to kind of accomplish the same things in some way, shape or form, and the whole separation and granularity of civics has just allowed Tiger to really shine on what it's trying to do, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what how that'll affect the servers when they finally get their hands on the update, and kind of seeing how the community takes shapes in these other servers. So we left off trying to form a town. We unfortunately didn't manage to do that. Not a whole lot of people kind of settled in the area. People did start to pop up towns as we left off, and they sort of congregated to those areas with those towns to kind of get their influence. But we have the area we were thinking of building a town is still pretty open, and unfortunately we had Domer's Masonry and Apartments joined up with Unica, which is the state surrounding the capital on the Tiger server right now. I was hoping to be able to pull him in and kind of create a town and then just subjugate under the country as a town, but yeah, plans are plans until they no longer work, I guess. When does the big announcement happen today? It is gonna be at around 2 p.m. Eastern, which would be 8 o'clock in Central Europe. So in about 50 minutes. And yeah, I think there's nothing to it. I'm renting a house from Hyogu here. So I'm getting some housing points without actually having a house, which is nice. And something I strongly recommend for anyone that feels that they don't have time to keep building and expanding and or has less interest in building and more of the other aspects of the game. Just find a place to rent at and get your house scored through that way. And the available housing things can be seen through the economy viewer on Y hotkey. And then you have this rents tab, and that'll list all kind of apartments or residential housing and whatnot where people can put in a small description. You can see who specifically they've invited, or everyone if it's a freely available housing. You can see the value of the housing, which also, now that I'm looking more in depth on it, probably should be rounding those float values so they're not showing the fractions. And we got the test game with us on the Twitch channel. And then also the move-in fee and what you need to pay them per hour to stay at their place. So that's kind of an easy way to find the place where you can get the housing value corresponding to for a reasonable fee on your premise or your budget, and get some free housing point without building a house. It's amazing. Superb. So I went on with farming, and we're gonna get our second star here during the stream. It's almost gonna match the announcement timer, which is terrifying. And I'm still a bit uncertain about if I want to completely commit to gathering. I do like the area, but I'm still a bit away from trying to form our own town, which would be the preferred way. Let's just grab the Shat. Let's clear out some of these notifications. Prime Minister election going on, members of parliament election going on. How big the test world is? The world size is 2.56 kilometer. So it is quite a bit bigger than your average kind of default server, if you will. And I'll be chugging a bit of coffee here during the stream just to kind of pick myself up a little bit. It's been I don't know, I've been feeling absolutely exhausted lately. I think I got an autumn cold or something coming in, so see how long my voice holds up as well. So I'm doing farming. The intention was farming, gathering, building a small town, and then doing like separate districts for the different crops, and can have a more fee-based regulatory farming area that would cover some of the grass plants and some of the grassland biome plots and some of the desert biome plots, as well as oaks and Joshuas. But that also hinges on us getting a hold of a third player. So the town creation restriction on Tiger is, I think we set it to 5 people now. Yeah. And it is by default 3 players for the vanilla basic settings. And all of the limitations and requirements and restrictions for the different towns and their or all the different settlements and their associated tiers are adjustable in settings, so you can adjust them for it to kind of fit your need or your server, or you can ask your server manager or host or whatever to review and change those based on the preferences of your community or the network of friends you have around you. And here we have a bit of a apartment complex going on. And it is being slightly replaced by tier 2 material now that we start to see bricks coming in. Which also brings me into... Let's have a look at the tech tree. So we've got all of the basic stuff. We've got pottery unlocked, we've got glassworking unlocked. Which means we're probably not going to be too far off to see mechanics coming out. And then that'll kind of kick us off properly in the tier 2 stage. Yeah, we got like 300 art supplies available. Yeah, I wonder. See if we can't manage to recruit some during the night here, or if we're just gonna have to fold and join the town below us and try to expand that area of influence to cover up a bigger place. Maybe manage to solicit some art supplies and trade some arts with someone. Which is bringing us into kind of the settlement growth mechanic, I guess. So if you can't found a settlement and you still, you want to expand your property and you want to keep kind of growing, you are going to need to get yourself under the influence or discussion with a nearby town that are capable of kind of expanding their influence towards you. And then sort that out with using cultural properties and help the town grow, essentially. And as more people join a town, they get access to more claim stakes and more claim papers, so they can keep building their properties. Let's have a look at that town, actually. So we got Serenity Grove, and it has a whopping 18 citizens in here. Which we've got some gathering, some unskilled, some campfire cooking, some more gathering, unskilled, a logger, carpenter, some more logging, carpenter. There's a lot of woodworking in here. Got one farmer and some logging. We have Serenity Grove Farm. We're checking through the properties and seeing what we are looking at. I mean, it wouldn't be completely alien to do that, but yeah. I wonder if we don't want to just do that and be like an extension for that and just dismantle. Yeah. Let's knock it down into Is he around here, or is he... Where do we have... Oh yeah, that is Ape Town, which is... Where is Ape Town? River, Cedar, River, Freedom, Euphoria. Oh yeah, that's the yellow blob over there. I kind of want to cover this though, but you know. What was that? That was Serenity Grove. Do we have the mayor online? Last online, 1 hour and 55 minutes ago. That's unfortunate. But what is their immigration policy? Can submit application. The new citizen is if new citizens are allowed, no requirements, and doesn't have an approver, which means it'll automatically approve me if I wanted to join that town. And it'll allow me to instantly join. Yeah, I guess that's what we're doing. But that'll mean we will need to temporarily dismantle this structure, unfortunately. At least until we can... Do they have a store to deal with properties, or... Yeah, we got claim papers here. But we don't have claim stakes. I wonder if they're linked to the foundation. And they'll pop out. I'm gonna place a marker there, and we're gonna walk down to that store. We're gonna hide our other markers as well. Let's grab those. Get rid of those, and we can hide these, and then we just want the Serenity Grove town store. That way we clean up our map a little bit, and we clean up our general HUD here. So here we see some road is being built as well. We're infrastructure is growing, towns are being built, and advancements are happening. I think getting some stone road here, looking pretty nice, and a bit of a town hall. A peaceful town where it's pleasant to live, mainly dedicated to agricultural and woodwork. Industries are still welcome, but pollution will be watched. That seems like what I was looking for in a town. And I only have access to the Serenity Grove store. If I'm gonna take a gander. Yeah, so we've got this store is only authorized to individuals that are a member of this settlement, which makes sense because what they are selling in this store is exclusively usable in this town. So claim papers are linked to a specific settlement now, and they're only usable inside that confound. So if I walk over here to the town foundation, got access to it, but I shouldn't be able to withdraw from it. Yeah, so I can't take it. I can't take out of it. But it looks like they don't have the stakes for sale, which probably means I need to probably should poke them. So we're gonna do, since one of the things that I want to get access to is that, and I know he is on Discord, so do we have what was the mayor's name? It was Serenity Grove, Phoenix. I don't know, he was in here somewhere. Did he just quickly join it? Is that you? That was a very... And I have two energetic cats going on in the background here like crazy, so we'll see what happens. Vad säger du? Döden där. Don't think I can increase the volume on my microphone any more than I have, but I can heighten the microphone. See if that's helping. And Nemo is commenting on slightly low microphone volume. Is anyone else having issues? Seeing. See if we can't change this around a little bit. There we go. Hello, hello. Hey, Trogdor. How's it going? Let's see here. So we can join the town and we can buy claim papers, which means we'll be able to expand our own property, but I can't buy a stake, which you would need to create new properties. So I'm gonna move back to our little town foundation and I'm gonna dismantle it and drop everything in a stockpile that is on my own property, because while I try to get a hold of a stake, I don't want someone to just nab something out of it. Oh, yeah. So what we are gonna do is, I don't know. Cats are living their best life, causing mayhem. Let's grab our little cart here. No. Oh, hey Cyborg. You haven't missed anything. It'll be still 30 minutes out. I don't know. So we want to dismantle this whole thing. And we can just nab that. And then we can just grab the stuff in there. We can nab that one. Branches don't want to let me pass. So let's make sure I am on my own property here when we're doing this. Let's grab world layers property, and then we want to show in world just so we can clearly see that this is my property. I can just dump in. Ooh, I got all of these acorns and they decay in 2.5 hours. That's fine. Plenty of time to just kind of rip things out and keep planting this oak forest that we're doing. The farming table will have to stand there because it has a bunch of labor in. Do that. Let's see if this wants to. Only wanting to place it on the property or against. It's doing something all right. But it must be within 20 meters of its original destination. There we go. That one is moved out of the way. And then we are just gonna dismantle this. While we sort out the logistics of the town. And it's lying a little bit saying that the storage is full. It's doing some quirks with inventory clearance check on depositing. It's kind of skipping to post that error message even if it isn't full. Yeah, overall everything is going pretty good. Progress is being done. A lot of things happening. A lot of things is being fixed. The team is absolutely cranking away at bug fixing, and it is a astounding amount of bugs that gets fixed by each week here. So things are on track, I believe. Being quite busy. Which is also why I haven't really gotten as much time on the playtest as I'd like to. We're still working a little bit with improving and tweaking around the animation and the interactability of the hammer when building. And I believe most of that most of that is live here on the playtest, so we'll go through that. If I can manage to get my hands on a stake, that way we can kind of build a new workshop property, or if we want to keep it as a cultural extension for the new town that will join. We'll see. We might have to just rebuild this house as is to really extend the length that we want to do, and then I'll try to see if we can't get some civics injection there. Too hungry to do that. Eat some more sausages and get some of that fat value up. Just whacking away, taking down the house. And this is more of a precautionary thing to do, because once Once I disband the town, which is what this property is linked to, it'll unclaim everything, which means there's no kind of safety net for this building until I get my hands on another claim stake. And if I had the mayor of that town available and online, and I know that they were being sold in the store, I would probably just risk it and swap over to that town, grab a claim stake, and then kind of just shuffle things around and drop that claim here. But since that's unlikely gonna happen, that thing's in the tree. We might have to cut that tree down. Yeah, that looks like we're gonna have to cut that tree down. Hello Skyfall. Hope you're having a good weekend. I'm just building away, or destroying away. Whacking. See, yeah, I think we got 2 oaks we might need to cut down just because they're planted so closely and or have grown so closely. And that was my hammer breaking. I need to repair my hammer. Now that we got, actually, iron. See if we have distance 500 meters. If we sort this by distance. Iron bars. Pickaxe, rock drill. Yes, this is 398 meters northeast, so that's in that's in there, so we're gonna have to do something about that. Grab ourselves a canoe and make the trip over to the capital. Järnvägsbygg. But we're gonna do that once we've dismantled this building completely. And build the boat and travel to on stream. Just dismantling, taking apart, destroying. And I think with that is where we're going without without cutting down these trees. So let's just do that. You need a jackhammer to destroy more than one piece at a time. It's something that, like on that context, it's not necessarily a bad idea, and it's like generally like easier destruction of built entities is something that I've been investigating to kind of see what we can do at what level and how that would work in terms of just like interactability of the environment around. So like when you're dismantling by hand, you have absolute kind of control over every single block, which means it's very easy to kind of start at the top and making your way down and so on. But something like an automated way, or not necessarily like autonomously automated way of doing it, but like an industrial way of like a wrecking ball or something, which is, it would be interesting. Yeah, thank you very much. It's been in progress for quite a long time, and I know everyone has kind of been sitting and hoping for the update to come out as quickly as possible, kind of since we first really started boiling down the details of what was going to be in it. But you know, it's taken its time due to a lot of complicated factors. It's also the biggest update we've worked on for Eco, both architecturally but also kind of content and surrounding gameplay implications. So I think it's a huge feat for the team, but it's gonna be really, really cool to see everyone and what they'll be doing and building and creating amazing societies, but also creating absolute chaos when they get their hands on it. So it's gonna be good fun. As for general destruction, yeah, I've been looking at it and kind of testing out to see like if we extended the deconstruction to say something like the excavator or so on, to just kind of like tear down a building quickly or so on, would be interesting to see. But then, you know, from a oh yeah, no, right now in this playthrough, on the, you know, in this cycle, I have my set of goals, and that was mainly to just do some farming, set that up, and just help provide some background resources for the general market, and just not stressing out and kind of getting really into the nitty-gritty of like the industrial progression and so on. So I'm not overly super revolved into what's going on in terms of like how the mechanics are doing, how much are the smelters, you know, spending time, and how much ore are they getting, and so on. Just taking the pace as it's coming along here. Also been busy with actually working on it, so you know, that takes its fair share of time. Catherine would say stick with something smaller like the jackhammer, but instead of having things destroy into personal inventory, let pieces drop to the ground and have them pick up, kind of thing. Think that one day the game will run on Unreal Engine 5? No, I don't think that's gonna happen, since the game is built in Unity, and making a complete porting it over into Unreal would basically be rewriting the game from scratch. So no, I don't see that happening. Are we gonna need to take care of those as well? Maybe, maybe not. Can we dismantle all the way out there? No, we're gonna need to cut down at least a branch. We take that down, and then we cut that down. If this hampers the growth of the trees, who knows? There we go. Now we've liberated the building completely. But instead having things destroy into the person's inventory, let them drop to the ground so they can have it pick up, kind of thing. It's kind of like it wouldn't be impossible. It's like mechanically it's possible to do that. But the question for us also kind of brings into, does it make sense out of gameplay things? Would I rather have like a bigger destructive thing that just actually destroys the material? So, you know, if you have your wooden shack and you want to replace it into this new fancy tier 2 or even tier 3 and do like concrete and so on, and do like an actual complete overhaul and upgrade of the building, would it be more fun to just, you know, destroy it, like actually you know, mince it to the ground and it's all a pile of rubble and you just scoop it up, which would allow you to kind of deconstruct and reconstruct quickly, but you destroy a large bulk of the materials as you're doing it, versus something where, you know, you'd always get the return material, which isn't necessarily good for the economy because you have less decay, less loss of materials, so there's less need for consumption, which is good out of an ecological aspect of it, but it's also contradictory to the economy drive of a server. And the cats are causing absolute havoc in the background here, so yeah. Maybe slightly distracted every now and then. Almost have the house completely deconstructed, so not. And we have a few glitches with the hammer, which you probably have noticed if you've been testing out the build. And that is sometimes you could have a halfway house, 50% chance of picking up the material. Yeah, so the way that would have to work is basically the chance roll would happen on the destruction. So, you know, anything that's on the ground would be pickable, basically. But it's not impossible. And we'll see what happens. I've got some changes coming for mining that I have planned for 10.1. And it'll offer some possibilities to some extent to look into that. But we'll see. You know, anything is possible, everything is possible. There's a lot more content to EcoPlan post 10. So, you know, we'll see what happens in the future. Talked with a lot of different communities around eco, and I think animals should behave aggressive to put a healing system as a professional. There are some innate problems with that out of a design perspective. I know, like, generally damage, health, and a lot of those things have been kind of subjects that keep cropping up every now and then. And while eco is sort of in the branch together with survival games as a whole, so if you're looking at, for example, what do we want to take, for example, like 7 Days to Die, or you know, Minecraft, or whichever else kind of voxel block type building worlds where you have more of a direct survival aspect to it, or, you know, wilderness kind of hostile environment around you. All of those based on the principle that the player can die. You can lose things on the player, or you can, you know, there is a significant loss to the death that you're experiencing based on the hostile environment around you. And that would be really hard to reflect in a game like Eco, because the intention in Eco is not to have survival as the main drive of the game design, as it is in those games, where, you know, you're advancing your technology to be able to better protect yourself. You're advancing technology to be able to, you know, get better gear, get upgrades, and so on. Instead of death, it's bankruptcy. but it's an interesting discussion, and you know it's an interesting concept, but it kind of goes against part of the casual embrace in eco, but it would also kind of subtract a lot of the potential efforts and involvements surrounding the civics if you suddenly, you know, always need to be hyper vigilant. Always need to be kind of hyper vigilant over your environment to not accidentally step into a bear and it you know bites you to death or mauls you or whatever. While having animals as non-aggressive, but because we did test out having aggressive animals for 9.0 and 9.1, where the animals were aggressive if you were getting too encroached on them. Wolves and jaguars and things like that would attack you. They would subtract calories, make a loud, you know, attacking noise kind of thing. And the entire community was basically against it. Based on the experience. Like that we didn't have a single positive feedback, I believe. Part of it was because animals are sort of misbehaving. They're not really at the finished state that we want them to have, clearly. They are going through a couple of rounds of optimizations and improvements in pathing, behavior, and kind of blending animations and so on. So it might be plausible to revise that and look it over once we have the animals in a more natural behaving way, as you know, avoiding towns or avoiding roads and trying to stay clear of players where the behavior is more predictive. But it is really kind of tricky to allow animals to be that level of hostility that they need to make sense as hostile animals. In an experience where we want to have it as casual as eco in terms of its gameplay kind of feel. Nice. So let's see here. I need another stockpile to be able to fit all these building materials. Let's put those first there and we'll have a stockpile in a minute. Now, that all said, if someone would want to create some sort of like survival damage, you know, add that whole lethality of the survival aspect to the game, it is quite possible to do that from the mod side of things, with the exception of some limitations right now in terms of the client side of it. So if you wanted to like add a new element to display your health, you probably won't be able to do that because of the UI for the player isn't completely auto-generated. But you know, continually expanding on the modability and the support for the modability, it's something that we constantly monitor and try to do. And the test game, if you're in here, Jordan, you can probably pitch in on that on the Twitch chat if anyone has any questions surrounding that particular part of the eco project, as he is our developer that works mainly towards the mod kit and some of the background surrounding infrastructure. He has been lead developer behind the new Twitch plugin, and some of the features surrounding that. So looking forward to see how that works out as well. So streamers will be able to kind of pull in and use Twitch environment to impact elections and civic events, I guess you could call it. And it seems like we're getting raided now. So, you know, things are brewing up, I believe. And hauling the cart around back and forth, emptying out this building materials. And we should have the property cleared, and we can just pick up that foundation and we can go and join that town. I might need to shuffle around my homestead a little bit if it's not entirely covered, but I believe it was. The towns, let's do town influences. Yeah, my homestead is coming up just on the border of it, so we'll see. We might have to do a little bit of shuffling depending on where that border is going to be at. So let's pick this up, and then we are going to pick the foundation up. So when you try to cancel that out, so if you want to move a foundation or move a toodle, hope everyone is having a great weekend. If you want to move a foundation, there are a couple of limitations here. So with the new towns and settlement system, the settlement itself is tied to a native deed or a property. So in this case, we have the Ember Spark City Foundation deed, which means a settlement needs a property to exist. The property is tied to this object. So if I wanted to pick this property up, and I pick up the deed, which would be the result of me picking up the foundation, the deed's not going to exist, which means the town cannot exist. Hence why one of the critical things that we added for 10.0 that I made sure was a possibility is this new hotkey that you see, allowing you to move an object rather than deconstruct or pick it up, while you can still do that. So for town foundations in particular, if you want to shuffle things around, you just hold control and you hit move, and then that will allow you to move this object. And I see the interaction distance is still a little bit off on the move action. You can move this object inside a certain perimeter, and depending on the distance, depending on the weight of the object, the calorie consumption will increase. So if you're moving a really heavy vehicle, it's going to cost you more calories than if you're just switching over and moving a small world object. Which means you can build a house and you can kind of shuffle things around without actually deconstructing them. So if you have work queues on, if you've got like workbenches tied to stockpiles and so on, they're gonna disconnect based on the distance if you're moving them away. But you can add labor and you can move the object if you want to redecorate and then return it back in there, and you're not gonna lose the labor you spent on those work projects. And for foundations of the different settlements, it's in the same ballpark. So we need to be able to move the foundation without destroying the property, which then is this move thing. So you just hit control, left click, and then that opens up that move menu, and then you just right click where you want to place it. Now for what we're doing here is I want to just remove it, which means I'll try to pick it up and it'll prompt you with what object you're trying to pick up, and it'll completely dismantle the constitution and it'll unclaim the property. And oh yeah, and I have active things on there that I'm crafting, and it'll also prevent you from doing that if you have craft orders on it, as usual. So do that, pick it up, and it's in draft, and once that happens, it'll destroy the property and it'll automatically add you as a settlement member if your homestead is on a higher tier settlement. So in this case, the White Tiger has a worldwide federation that is covering the globe to guarantee that every member is always a part of a settlement regardless of which state. So now that I'm no longer a part of this town I was trying to found, it automatically popped me into the federation because that is where my homestead is located under. And now that that happened, you can see that I no longer have this little perimeter on my house because I'm not a part of that anymore. I think I should be able to join up that other town. So if we just grab that chest and we'll pop in our foundation because we don't need that anymore. Throw in some of this. There we go. Throw in some of that wood pulp and that'll get turned into some mortar. Switch over to property and we're gonna head down to the Serenity Grove town again. See what happens. So the goal here now, since I can open that, force that tooltip to pop up, that should be disappearing on its own. See if I can't join that town now. So now that we have our town less, I can go into the foundation and I can go into citizens. And here you can see the direct citizens of this place. My homestead's too far away, and this is what I was concerned about. So when you want to join a town, if you have a homestead placed, you're gonna need to be within a certain radius of the town. And if you're not and you're outside of that, it's not gonna let you join it. So what I am gonna need to do is I'm gonna need to shuffle my town. So the way you can kind of resolve it is either you remove the homestead and you join the town, and then you kind of place your homestead nearby or inside the town radius after you've joined, because that'll give you a better indication of how far away you can be. Or you can kind of scoop along. We do this. So the homestead is marked similar as the town foundations. Homesteads are marked by another type of object, which is a homestead claim stake. And the homestead claim stake can only be placed, inside your homestead that is your claimed area. So if we move this down to the very southwest border of our property, move that there, we place it, and then we can grab our claim tool, make sure that it is linked to our house. I can claim into that area. So if I just claim my way down here into the southwest, so I'm making sure that I have enough property, because the property count is going to say that it wants at least 50% of your plots to be adjacent to the town you're trying to join. So if I just claim a bunch of tiles on the inside of this, so I'm claiming in the town now. And I can do this because of this town is a member of the Federation, and this land is kind of Federation property, if you will. So if we do that, let's have a see if we can't join that. And there we go. Our character level up happened. We got another star that we can spend on gathering or something fun. It is so eerie, yet so fantastic when you're running with the different types of shaders active. You can have this kind of like special ambient nightlight mode if you want. And they are like turbo machines running around in the background here. We are 43% plots. And we need to have at least 50%. So either move the homestead plots closer or remove the homestead entirely to become a citizen. Don't want to move my homestead completely, but I want to add a few more plots in there. Maybe move in the 2 furthest most plots just to get us inside the perimeter. And then we're gonna be building a cultural property to help out the town to kind of expand in that area to cover more farmable land to the northeast and cover more of, kind of build something on that border here to kind of just expand that town to make sure that we can cover the farmland that I wanted to be working on originally. They are just running back and forth in here. Crazy cats. So if I grab the full stockpile, for instance, and I try to move this thing, you see that it is way outside of my calorie proportions here, where it wants to use 20,000 calories, which is clearly way beyond what I can use and what I can have. So moving, you know, filling in a storage and then completely moving it over by using the move thing from a general kind of exploitative perspective was something that I wanted to make sure it wasn't possible. But on the other hand, I also wanted to make sure that it was doable if you wanted to change out some of those costs. We grab the tent, for instance. That thing contains some items. So we can move that over there. Grab this workbench. We can move the workbench down here. This is going to be absolutely chaotic. Just kind of shuffling things around like this. But I think it's a good example on, you know, even if I had a bunch of work orders and whatnot for these things, I don't need to constantly kind of pick things up completely and break links. I can just shuffle them around a little bit and get things going. So yeah, right now we are, I think we're on, I think I may have misspoken slightly. I think it was going to be in half. So the announcement is going to be on as soon as Dennis gets back and available, which is going to be at 8:30 CET. It's 2:30 p.m. Eastern, I believe. So everything is ready to go, but we're just waiting for our amazing community manager. Höger klicka på claim-toolet. Och så musen, höger klicka på den. So let's see here. Now that we've picked those up, I think we should. Is that 50%? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we've got 5 outside. So that should be. Let's just claim one here, just for safety. There we go. My property is looking absolutely atrocious, but yeah. You do what you gotta do to be a part of the town. Part of the town, part of the crew. Part of the crew, part of the town. It was difficult for us to set up a town hall system for the first time. Would there be a way to facilitate the implementation afterwards? Artistical claim. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. You mean like if you have a country or setting up a town after the fact, or I'm not sure I followed with. Here we go. So now I'm following the obligations under the town criteria being, or any settlement criteria being, I need to have the properties with at least 50% of that property within the borders of the town. There is also ways to kind of prohibit anyone from claiming in the area and so on and so forth. if you want to change out like immigration policies and that. So there's a lot of tweakability and customizability for your town and its legislation. So hoping it'll fit most playstyles. So I'll abandon the White Tiger Federation because right now I am a direct citizen of this settlement, and becoming a citizen of the town, which is there. Bam. Whoa. Now I am a part of this town, which is also giving me a whole bunch of new legislative power. So if we go under, see how much this is actually showing. So this monstrosity here is gonna be showing you every single article and every single law that you are subjugated under if you are a part of this, like the specific settlement. So you can switch out these and kind of look over which towns have what rules and so on and so forth. So in this case, for instance, we are the Serenity Grove is having a law for hunting and cleaning, and it'll ignore authorization if you're trying to hunt, clean up tree debris or chop stumps, or pick up place objects of vehicle types, and as well as like preservation. So it allows the kind of granularity to kind of go through and select the different towns and see what the towns have laws that might be interesting to you, or just keeping tabs on your town and making sure that they don't try to push in something odd that you might find weird or against. And then we have, this is a an iteration and work in progress in trying to showcase the relationship in between different towns, countries, and foundations or federations. So it'll show you how many settlers there are in each of them, if they're subject under a country or if they're subject under a federation directly, and so on, or neither if they don't have a relation to them. So here we can see almost every single town is directly linked to the federation directly, versus Farming Paradise, which is a member of the state/country. And then you can see the population in here. If we check the federation, you can see all the different kind of demographics and so on. Added French version for town options. You mean translation wise? Like, are you talking about localization for the different things? Which is what I'm presuming. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else we're talking about. So here we go. We can now access this store because we're a member of the town, and I can buy a town stake, which is your new way of creating new properties. So even if you have claim papers, you can't create entirely new properties separate from the existing one that you have. Without these new claim stakes, which are kind of the main go-to objects for it. So I'm just gonna do that and buy. Well, this is 5. Let's buy. Let's buy 10 of these. That is our claim stake, and we got our claim papers. And claim stakes comes with their own claim papers as well. And upwards. Are you gonna put in the explanations about how to create a town hall in French? All the localizations and all kind of general information about a lot of these elements are available in the Ecopedia, which is translated, since they're crowd-based translation. So most of these and almost all of the translations are made by the community in some way, shape, or form on there are some resources on the Discord for how to get involved in that and how it works in the translation channel. And all of these things should be translated into your local language if it's available to be picked on Steam as they get available. So these should generally be able to be translated, and these kind of go over each step of the different objects, founding, how you do it, how it kind of works, and going into a little bit more detail, and so on, as well as kind of the citizenship, the influence functionality. So hopefully that'll make more sense for people that aren't completely native or fluent in English, and help your help with the understanding about kind of how things pass and how things work, if there's any questions. But as always, if there is a general questions things going on, and you need, you feel that, hey, there's absolutely no information about this and I have no idea on how to do it, where do I find information? Pop questions on the Discord. A lot of people are more than happy to help out and answer it. And if there's something in particular that you feel that, hey, this really needs to be more explained in the game, also pop suggestions for that, because at the moment there's not really a whole lot of tutorials, like in-game tutorials about how to kind of start your settlements and how to kind of get that going through the general tutorial system. Something that we're looking to do, but it's also kind of hard to add a tutorial for something that would tell every player to create their own town when the town needs to have multiple people. So there's kind of a multiple people dependency to make a tutorial work with those functionalities. So we're looking into kind of how we want to translate that information better to the player through like tutorial bites and so on. But a lot of information should be available in the Ecopedia on most of those subjects. So now that we have our claim stake, we are a part of the town, which means when I have my claim stake here, you can see that it is telling me that, hey, start a deed for the Serenity Grove when placed. And you can see the amount of claim stakes in the world. You can see kind of which towns have active stores for claim stakes. So that might give you a good indication of, hey, this settlement they're actively looking for new players. And they're also very freely available with selling property and selling stores, using the store to kind of sell the claims and sell stakes to allow players to freely gain new properties and freely expand their properties. And when you're trying to place it, it'll light up and say, this plot is occupied, you can't build there. And then it'll highlight red outside the border of the town. So, you can't place a claim outside of the town influence, because that'll prevent you and say like, hey, you can only start it inside the influence radius of that town. So I'm gonna start building that here for a cultural expansion, and then once I've gotten somewhere with that and start to grow the influence for the town, that'll shift the influence radius and expand more here, and then I'll move my homestead upwards towards the coastline, I think. So I'm just gonna nudge it up against my homestead as is right now, just giving a little bit of a spacing here from Hyogo's place. So if we want to do like a road, got a main road over there, and then we'll do like wide road, 2 wide road in here, and then we can do 1 claim side road here. Will probably be good enough. So we can add that 1 tile in, and that'll create a new property, which is a Serenity Grove. We do this. So it created that Serenity Grove deed, and now I can grab my claim tool, make sure I'm using that grove deed, and I can start claiming for that, for this property. And as you can see up here, it has 4 plots with the stake, and then I can open up the stake and I can drag in claim papers, because the claim papers now have a settlement relation. These claims can only be used on stakes within the influence of Serenity Grove, so I can grab these and I can just drop them in here, and that'll expand the amount of plots I can have on this property. So now I went from 4 to 14, which is going to be big enough for me to kind of do what I want for what will basically be like a I don't know, museum slash cultural building here going on. Which will also allow me to start using that building material, shift things around, move my property back, and get things going. So we're gonna do a 3 wide, and then we're just gonna do like 2 depth here, or get the 2 in, so we get like a 3 by 3, and I can start rebuilding that. But we are gonna need to take a look at some art, and we're gonna want art supplies, and we're gonna want easel, and we don't really have icons for some of these things. Claim tools. So there's a couple of new. That's not really there. Go away, shoe. There are a couple of new clothing here that doesn't really have icons yet. They're a bit of some cool last minute additions from the art team. Let's go there. I wonder. Public crafting stations. Do we have anyone nearby here? We got Frosty Store. Sells easels, and we got Volodys that are selling Mr. Mia. Look at that, items for sale. Tall rack, there's some. Yeah, the Volody has some, which is adjacent. Which is selling some easels and selling some art supplies. So that is probably where we're gonna be going. Eat some more food, and I also need to fix some new salads and whatnot for keeping that. Need to empty out my inventory so I don't bring everything with me. Because we don't need the store with me, and we definitely don't need these 2 doors. So one thing that may make a few players a little bit begrudgingly is I've been looking over and revised a lot of the weights for a lot of objects overall, and generally like housing materials and like crafting stations and everything has gotten a big kind of rebalance towards what their weights were. Same thing with crops, like you can't fill your every single slot, entire inventory with a whole whooping amazing amount of crops anymore. You're gonna need to have some sort of storage slash hauling when you're doing like bigger harvests or roaming around and doing bigger, longer hunting sessions. which also means that when you're traveling and you want to buy like a whole living room worth of furniture, you probably want to be keeping an eye on how much each of those things are going to be weighing, unless you have a vehicle with you. So here we can see some canoes and some harbor stuff being built, and we can probably shift that property off. We don't need to see that right now. Some canoes. And I also took the opportunity in 10.0 to revise the world generation layers for ores and general materials in the ground. So as you saw in the river when I was passing through, there was an outcrop of iron ore. So ores are now generated in the part of the surface layer proportionally with the metal types based in the biomes that they're most commonly found in. So you'll see things like iron sticking out in the desert. You'll see copper sticking out in the colder biomes like the taiga, the mountains, and the glacials. And things like gold in the jungle and so on. Where exactly am I now? Going in. Curiosity. Ribiome. So here we want to grab, probably want to do, so here for example a large lumber stockpile is weighing 5 kilos, towel rack is weighing 1 kilo, Wainwright table is 2 kilos, so it's not a super quantity, however it does add weight to it, so you want to be, you can easily do like 30, 40, 50 kilos worth of things on your normal shopping trip that you might have to kind of adjust. So we're going to do some art supplies. Let's do 10 of those. And then we want a large lumber stockpile. I want to have need a fiber sketching station if I'm going gathering, and that is going to be, we got 2, 7, and we got 12, so we should be fine. And then we complete that transaction. There we go, look at that. And yeah, looking for just making our way back to our place in a little bit. We've got some, now that I've got some art supplies and I've got that easel, I can actually use that here out in the wild to do some stuff. So say I'm gonna grab so here we've got the easel. So when you're using it, it gives you this little circle that you need to stay inside or it'll cancel it. So in this case I'm just grabbing some scenery here. And here you can also kind of go in and shift out your aspect ratio. So if you want a some different styles, which we're involving into, and that'll do like the next type, the amount of consumable resources you have, as well as show an explorer, so you can grab, you can look over where these pictures are being posted on your hard drive, so you can save it, upload it somewhere else or drop it in discussion groups or whatnot. We want to do that, and then we just go back to the easel. And we got some special effects here and some audio planned for it as well. And that consumes a resource, and then you get this, you know, you can save it, you can discard it, and as it notes out, even when discarded, there's still going to be a copy on it saved on your computer, because it does that in the event of the creation. So when you save it, it'll create a so-called picture item based on that photo, and we can do that for capture the sunset. So if we change out the aspect ratio, we can do that. We can do with that. Not entirely sure how much of this. How much of the different types were actually completed yet. So Geo has been doing a fantastic job on working on the shader and the functionality here, and it's been an absolute crazy journey to get this working in game and get this sorted out and making sure that it's working the way it's working, the layering is happening the way they are, and the brush strokes are kind of shown and everything, and all of that. It's absolutely fantastic work from him. Can't praise it enough. He's also the one that did all the cameras and everything. So the easel is kind of your introductory initial steps to these photos. And these are your main source of cultural value for the towns. Is there any info on the art, the easel and art supplies on how to craft them? Hoping it's not too difficult in early game. So I should probably have some rolling flow charts just to kind of show some of the tech tree things. Unfortunately, I don't. Might do that for the next stream. But basically, the easel is made out of grinding down plants and some of the flowers that now have proper droppables, like the creosote bush, the trillium flowers. So some of the actual, like the orchids, so the actual flowers, not actual crop plants. So they can now be plantable, such as this. They now yield you with their flowers, and you can use those flowers in milling and grind them down into colored powders. The colored powders is then mixed with some type of oil, in terms of like the cooking oil types. And as a requirement for milling, we shift milling around. So milling isn't tech dependent on like tier 1.5 things. So the engineering, the advanced engineering papers that were previously a requirement for milling to be unlocked has been removed. So it is much easier to get into milling early on. I've also added flour to some of the campfire cooking recipes. And hello, Armored. Hope you're having a good evening. So milling is available in tier 1. You can go over here. Or actually, probably better to go through the tech tree. So you've got your campfire cooking, you've got your gathering, and so on. It brings in milling here. And colored powder is available through this. It requires petals. Petals is a tag which is gained from the flowers of the creosote bush, the trillium plant, and the orchids. So there is a resource for this in the grassland colder biomes. There's a resource gain for these in the desert as well as in the jungle and kind of the hotter climate areas. It's up in milling 2. I'll probably drop both colored powder and oil paints down to tier 1 just to make them available way earlier. And then those are mixed up and together with canvas, which is made by tailoring. So you do have an involvement of tailoring and milling to be able to do them. But based on the normal acquisition and unlocks of these two professions, probably available around, you know, somewhere between day 2 and 3. You can have secret flower farms next to seasons instead of secret wheat farms. Yeah. So, you know, doing actual flower farming is usable. It's essential. Curry powder, no. Colored powder, not curry powder. So these ones. My eyes are playing games on me. Yeah. Hopefully shouldn't be too difficult. If it turns out it is way too difficult and comes in way too late, I'll probably reduce the quantity on the required ingredients and make them a bit cheaper. But it also feels as it's a good way to keep some of these professions relevant throughout, and there's, you know, you have a constant consumption need for them regardless of, and it's a good way to kind of involve cash crops rather than just food items for some of the food focusing professions like milling. It now has an outlet for just pure cash involvement rather than just food. And that's true for another rebalance I did for lumber, where lumber now requires a certain type of processed oil to be able to be crafted. Which is hopefully going to shake things up quite significantly, and I'm gonna keep adding dependencies. I got a few ideas for post 10 in regarding to fertilizer and some of the things in there that's going to be shaking things around quite significantly. But you know, we've got this amazing oak forest, we've got this night sky, and we got some of this industrialization things going on. So let's just grab that easel again, pop it down here, and we can just use that. Grab that as a scenery, and let's do a sobel maybe. Just have that like, there we go. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Dennis. They are it's brewing. It is brewing. So that's a nice picture, right? I think. Not too terrible. See if we change this out to the comic. Really like the art with those filters. Is the processing load all local on the client side? Yeah. Yeah, that's all happening on the local side. And the best part of it is that this is a texture that's rendered on the object itself, which means you can also include it. So if you move if I move too far away, it'll cancel out. But because it's on the canvas, I can do this, and you know, I can paint the painting in with the painting. So I can do some cool stuff with, you know, paintings being done, and have that included in with the scenery with different types of art styles, and kind of shuffling around. And then you can get some insane inception here with a painting and a painting and a painting and so on. So there's, you know, hopefully we're gonna see some cool things coming out. We've seen some pretty impressive things and some really good scenery shots and some art coming out. That's been really cool to be watching. And we also had like someone did a some zoology museum things where they went around and kind of framed all the different types of animals and displayed them and so on. So, you know, hopefully just adds more flavor, and you can add these two, which is what we're going to be looking for next. We're going to be looking for some frames. So with this comes a whole heap load of different types of frames to add these artworks onto, which you can then place in your house, and people can they can apply reputation to these pictures with so you have your reputation that you can place on players, which is if I do this. This is something that's kind of been a thing for a while, or forever. So you can click on a player and you can add the reputation value to it, and you know, put a review in there, and it'll increase the reputation. And then with the increase, it'll change out the titles. They'll go from being like gray unknowns onto different types of colors. So if you get negative reputation, it'll go red. If you get positive reputation, it'll go green. And then as you kind of go on, you can get it really helps kind of distinguish who are involved in the environment and who are involved in the community, and kind of get things going. And the same thing works similar for art, where you can add reputation to the artworks, and it'll give a benefit and a bonus to the cultural value that is, you have a penalty for giving yourself reputation, if you will. So if reputation is coming from someone outside of your settlement, it'll be much more valued versus just reputation that you dump in from the town. So you could have like a drive of trying to get a whole bunch of people coming to your museum or coming to your house and giving value to your artwork to just increase the value and influence of your town. So we have someone that's fairly close by that's selling these. Frost is buying. We got Mystery Shop 365 Northwest. Is that going to be on our? Is that going to be on our island? Yeah, that is on our island. That was Mystery. Great. So if we head up there, I'm just going to unload some of these things in here. And then we're gonna hop up and we're gonna buy some painting frames to put in there. Let's kind of offload them so we don't have them in there. I want to bring the easel with me just to make sure. I almost forgot to bring it with me, since it's not unclaimed property. Anyone could grab it. Joink. Frames looks great. Will it be possible to see upload imported art on those frames too? Yeah. So any art, like item, like picture item, is you just drag them in there and it'll display them in the game as a frame, and it'll just be on there. And you'll see that here in a little bit when I get up to that. Buy some and start building the house again and place them in there. Oh yeah, upload Grumbles. You're talking about like importing custom textures from locally from your PC into the game? Absolutely. We have some moderation restrictions and some permission layer settings from a server admin perspective to regulate that in different forms. But there is a later tech machine for a printing press that comes out in the mechanical era that allows you to, or at the moment it's coming out in the mechanical era. We have a new work object that a work table that is intended to do that in the industrial / electronical era. So you have like a station for like an electrical station for uploading these digital versions of it. But yeah, so the printing press in 10 is completely fully enabled and is working. So let's do here. Where are we going? We're going into this little house here. And these are the new stone braziers, by the way. They got a bit of an art upgrade. Here we go. Let's see here. So we want to do lumber, tables, products, probably under, yeah, here we go, under art. Here we got some wooden frames, some ornate wooden frames. We want some wide. Let's do some talls as well, and then we want to have regular plain. Some different versions here. So yeah, this is the new stamped road as well as the new stone road. So these are some new texture upgrades that we've done to kind of make them more in line with the quality of the asphalt, and making them using some new functionality to make it kind of pop a bit more. And there's still a plain texture, but due to some technical shenanigans the art team has been up to, it kind of makes it look like they have form, if you will, on the actual texture. It's looking really, really nice. The art team has done a fantastic job at this, and they've also overhauled a lot of the ground textures for most blocks. It's still a polish in progress, very much so. Orc roads. They are wetlands in particular has gone through an absolute astronomical change in my view. It's looking crazily good. So we might take a peek over there here once we've got this kind of set up. Armored, no, we the asphalt lines are still not working on the ramps. I'm sorry. I'll try to convince Toby that we need to do that. We got some more farmland here. We got a new model for the windmill. There is also an asset upgrade for the water wheel coming, but it's not in yet, and I'm not entirely sure that it'll be done for 10, but there is one coming. And the art team is going over a whole bunch of these different asset upgrades. As you can see here, this is a version of the new chest. And we got the new campfire. So they are big windmills and water wheels. There is, so to kind of give some context on that, because it's a really good point in terms of like volumetric size for these objects, and it's not entirely something that we want, like on a purely aesthetic thing. It's kind of a world scale versus world mechanic kind of thing. So because mechanical power is similar to electrical power, where it's limited to a certain range of influence, it's tricky to have an object that requires such a huge clearance. If say the object for the windmill housing is like 3 by 2 or something. So it would be center lined and or even 2 by 2, and it would be center lined, and the whole kind of wingspan would be, say, 7 tiles or 10 tiles big. So you have this kind of huge wind blade for them that would make it look like it would really pop, like this is a huge asset. It also means that it needs to be viable enough to also share the mechanical power with the devices you want to be using them, which means that that thing has to be placed like 20-30 tiles up in the air, or like stacked up on the way on the side of the building, but it needs to extend the power radius long enough to be able to do that. Yeah, so need a wood block to transfer mechanical power instead of range. Yeah, it's something that we've been it's been discussed, and it's something that's ongoingly kind of poked at if we want to transition mechanical power to be directly adjacently spread. There's a lot of the community that would like that, and it is definitely something that keeps cropping up internally for discussion every now and then when we're looking at these things and what, kind of where we're designing and want to be pushing these functionalities to. So it's ongoing, but even if we did want to just make that really, really big, now that we have the base model for it, just expanding it and making it bigger in terms of scale is fairly easy. So doing this and like tripling the size of the blades in length and twice the width, it would kind of allow that. Armored, yeah, using lubricant, some type of lubricant to use as fuel for power generation. Yeah, it's definitely on the topic of things being discussed. But it would probably be in the part of something of a kind of tweak towards oil and processing, because I'd like to move the start of general crude oil and oil drilling to the mechanical era, which would then kind of allow lubricant to be part of things like the early mechanical vehicles and early mechanical machinery. That would open that up. Unfortunately, time being limited, art only has time and capacity for so much, and our devs only have so much availability for kind of code support and introductions of new mechanics. So we'll see. We got plenty of things planned, but one step at a time. And yeah, we're art is working on a huge amount of general art improvement, general quality polish, and pushing these assets kind of up to the specs of the current game, one should say, because a lot of these assets have been developed over time, and some of them can be really, really old comparatively. So just doing like a pass on them and uniforming the textures and the materials in between the workbenches, and reducing the VRAM memory usage, because the assets are sharing more. They're sharing more materials and sharing more pieces in between them. So it's a huge drive on rendering optimizations as well, to just reduce the amount of reduce the specs required to kind of run it at a higher capacity. But yeah, so now let's see if we want to do. So we have this here, and if we just switch this over to building again, show in world, just so we can see the property outline. A little bit foolish to have that right in the middle here. We got one tile there. Probably want to have that slightly off to the side, just to kind of control move. And we want to place this one tile. We're going to have entrance. Maybe have that here. Let's move that over there. Yeah. And then we will be digging and digging and digging. So we're gonna grab that cart of ours. You have plans on adding cogs and gears later on and actually needing to physically connect the windmills and water wheels to their workbenches. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, like having sort of gears similar to how pipes works for liquids to be working the same way would be one way to kind of reduce the wonky building of some things, but it would also allow us to kind of scale up certain things if it's kinetically connected. But it does add its own layer of kind of infrastructure requirements. But it would definitely be... It's definitely an interesting avenue to investigate in and really evaluate to see if we wanted to do it. But there is the possibility to do it. So yeah, I think we're just gonna roll this thing up here. And then... Actually, the boat should be... hey, Silver Grey. I am building a cultural outpost for the town I joined. So we're gonna grab this canoe because I need to get over. There's not a lot of industrial manufacturing going on in the town or in the surrounding towns that we have on the islands I'm on. So we're gonna just skip a jump over and see if we can't get a hold of some iron tools. And we also have some audio things that we want to oh, look at that, have a sausage fork. So as you can see, it's still a little bit to polish and some work in progress in terms of the paddle kind of speed. As you can see, the fork with the sausage on it. Where do we want to make landing here? We've got some shops up here, Bloomery. So I wonder if we can make it all the way up here. Sausage powered canoe. Yeah. Oh yeah, see, Jordan has a check on it. The announcement has happened. I am mostly sad over not having been pinged by that. Not sure why I don't have. Did I lose my role for release pings? So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, head over to our official social media channels and or Discord. We have a announced release date for Eco 10.0 now. So pop in there, post a message, shout out, and you know, whichever. As we have the planned release for 10.0 in December 12th. And we still have some issues with the slight right toggle of the canoe, which I probably need to take a look at. Unless Mike might have some capacity to do that. Yeah. Are we confident that we'll make the deadline? Absolutely. Isn't everyone that's release dates confident that we'll make it? Jordan, pitch me in here. Help me out. Shouldn't you be confident that we can make the deadline when you make an announcement? Look at that. A little channel here. Elma in this little tunnel, working his way. Wonder where this secret tunnel is going. It's a massive work in progress under the whole town, it seems like. Håller hon på med? A very sad cat in the background here. There we go. Made it into town. Water physics working now. Did you guys do any other improvements on it? There was some optimization stuff, but outside of making sure that all the kind of hollow blocks works and these like the general water spread thing going on, not really. We want to do more, but and we'll probably do more to kind of fix more and polish it further up. But some of the changes that we need to do to make water behave the way we want it to behave at the end of it requires some more significant reworks and a bigger kind of architectural change for it that was deemed fairly unsafe to make it in time for 10 due to our other commitments for other mechanics. So that is basically on hold. Do I want to use 2? Probably not, but go with 2 of that, go with 2 of that, and then want to grab an iron sickle. And just, do I want a recurve bow? Do I need a recurve bow? Yeah, we're probably fine. Did we have an axe there? Yes, we did. Just making sure that we are replacing our old stone tools to there we go. So yeah, pretty happy. We finally got to give an announcement to for the actual release date. So looking forward to finally getting 10 out there. It's gonna be absolutely crazy. Did you guys sort out some of the kinks with the interaction system, like targeting a block and hitting the block behind it and such? Yeah, so to give a little bit of context to that, one of the things that we did architecturally, so like, you know, background tech-wise, that isn't really noticeable for the player in most of the cases surrounding it, is what's referred to as the interaction system. And that first right turn is really not liking it in the animator. So the interaction system is, from an external point of view, not necessarily the system that does the interactions per se, because the interactions are happening using the tool code and then calling on the interaction manager to kind of, you know, route these into to the correct parts back and forth. And the interaction system that we were using were kind of something that were just, you know, it was implemented very, very early on in the eco development, and it kind of, each new kind of gameplay element interaction outside of the very original, like, build, pickup, place pickup, and mine, have been kind of constantly spaghettied on top of it, just to kind of make it work with the already existing base code, and it was never really refurbished to fit in the more sophisticated ones, like the eating stuff, the drills, the fishing rods, and some of these other kind of more complex interactions that is happening in the world. And then the same thing with like different types of material interactions or limitations, to like tool limitations and when you're in vehicles. So you don't want to be digging away dirt with your shovel that you held in your hand when you jumped into a vehicle, and so on. So that whole underlying system was basically chucked in the bin and reworked from scratch in 10, and that has been the second source for the quantity of bugs that we've been seeing in the playtest, because what happened with the complete rewrite of it is that it is much more modular now. It is easier to debug, it's easier to add new things to it, it's a lot cleaner, but it also meant that all of the small kind of bandage, like small packets of hot fixes for these special quirks and kinks and these unique kind of criteria in between, like certain block filtration priorities. For example, if you have a cart that's behind a tall plant, the plant interaction is happening because I don't hold, anything that's a pickable plant, for instance, is always targeting that plant to make sure that I can always pick it, because that's my primary interaction with this block. But if I have a vehicle behind it, and say I grab this one here, and we just roll it up into the tomatoes as an example. Now the interaction needs to know that even though I'm not holding anything in my hand, and even though the tomato is a valid interaction to be done, I still want to pick up that cart because that's what I'm looking at. Like, my intention here is I want to grab my cart because it's in the middle of my farm field and I want to keep rolling it away here. The plant needs to know that I want to pick up the cart. I don't want to pick up the plant. And for that to happen, it needs to be layered in a specific order, and it needs to have, like, every single kind of parameter needs to be correctly placed in their order of execution to be able to properly map and force that event to happen rather than something else. And the same thing you can see, like, if you have loose rubble in a stockpile, you want to make sure that you pick the rubble instead of the stockpile. So for the old interaction code, all of these kind of things had small packages of fixes here and there, back and forth, up and down, which, grew the spaghetti, if you will. So when that whole code piece got ripped out, all of these small unique fixes that has gone into the game over the course of the 4.5 years it's been out on Steam, and the 1.5 year it's been out on as public access from the Kickstarter, all of that was kind of, I wouldn't say lost, but it needed to be rewritten and rearranged in a way that made sense with the entire new architectural system. And a lot of the tool interactions had to be rewritten to work with the new system because they were kind of piggybacking off the old one, and cleaning that whole thing out has been a substantial load of work to make it work nicely with the new system. It's all pretty clean and crisp code in comparison to what it was before, and we are now starting to really be at a level where a lot of these things have been eliminated, especially in the last couple of weeks. And everyone that has been participating in the playtest has been absolutely vital to the speed of those happening, as well as kind of catching all the different types of scenarios and events where these things may be causing weird things back and forth for any number of reasons. So can't say it enough, and I know it feels like I keep parroting myself a little bit, but everyone that has been participating in the playtest has been an absolute champion, and deserve the praise. There's still a couple of polished things for the shovel that needs to happen. So one of the things you can probably notice here that I am digging multiple pieces at the same time, which is an incorporation of what was used for the big shovel mod, for those that were using it and those were kind of exposed to it. And it's actually quite an interesting development on it. So the big shovel mod was a mod that introduced different variation and tiers of shovels that would allow you to have an increased stack per the shovel that would increase the volume of capacity for it. And with a lot of the interaction changes that went down in 9.7, I believe, Jordan can probably correct me if that's not the case. I think with 9.7.11 or something, we redid some of the core functionalities that broke that mod completely. And it was just not really plausible to do it the way they were doing it. So what we did was exposed some of the variables for the shovel and kind of extended it for modability. So the shovel itself had a property set for the amount of things it can pick up, making the mod easier to kind of manage. And after some back and forth discussions with the team, we came to the conclusion that as of like the popularity of the functionality as a way to promote the use of higher tier shovels, instead of having like an AoE effect of the shovel, which would be odd in a lot of cases, we took the approach that Big Shovel had with it and just increased the volume of stacks for it. So it's kind of a vanilla implementation of it that just grew kind of from the popularity of it, but also from kind of a necessity to have some sort of upgrade reasons for the shovel other than just calorie tiers. Yeah, so the quantity of materials that you can pick up is based on the tier of the tool. So wooden shovel is 1 stack, or 1 stack as maximum sized, and then iron is 3, steel is 5, and then modern can take up to 10. Which is still a capacity limitation. Armored, yeah, basically. The stack limitation sizes is inside the script for each of the tools. So if a server wants to change that out, they can adjust those numbers in override files to whatever they feel comfortable with. So, you know, if they really don't want interchangeable stack sizes on the shovels, they can just reduce that to 1 if they want to do. Any plans to do the same with hammers? Hammers already kind of have that. Like, they don't have specific stack limitation sizes, but you do have different shapes, like the fill types of the hammers that you can use. Like the wooden hammer or the stone hammer is, grab that one. The stone hammer is limited to just line and, if I can scroll up and grab it. There we go. So if we grab a stack here, the stone hammer is limited to the fill type of point and line. Rodney, hey, the big announcement is release date for Eco Update 10.0, and that is the 12th of December. Iron Hammer has 9713. Iron Hammer has all the, yeah. So that is also a configurable thing. Let me know what you think of the idea of actually limiting the forms as well. So I'm pretty sure that there is a... Without that much effort, I think we can do that. And it's been something that I kind of want to push for, but been a bit cautious about it. But I feel like it should be a good limitation. So, you know, even if you have ashlar, you can't build all the different form types unless you have a modern version of the hammer. So if you only have a crude stone hammer, you can only build like the basic squares and walls and supports and stairs to get access to kind of tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and so on. Faster swinging tools with higher tiers would be great. They are generally faster. If there's some variation of tools that aren't, probably should be looked into as a bug, because they should generally be faster. So right now we're just cleaning out the ground and making sure that we can place down our flooring of this building to get kind of going. And as someone might have noticed with that might have been exposed to the earlier playtest, we are experimenting a lot with adding animations for all the actions in the game, and there will be animations for everything. But we are also trying to make sure that the animations that are happening are also sensible in terms of kind of intention, time, speed, kind of how things working. Where do I want to build this thing? Kind of need to clear out a whole bunch of the space back here. Let's grab some dirt. Fill this back up. Fill this back up. Can I... Probably shouldn't have gotten the big one. Probably should have gotten the other one. If we're here, we need to fill up that last line. It's gonna be all the way out here. Yeah, so the rubble pickup animation kind of got rescinded because it was a bit quirky in terms of speed. It's currently the same kind of speed that is on the wood pickup, but you pick up less wood than you do, or less frequent, I should say. And not kind of like a gazillion rubble. So what happened with it was that it was slightly... what on earth was going on there? Okay. Well, that's interesting. Weird things happens when you stream. That's just the way it is. Accept it and move on. So the essential breakdown was that it made rubble interactions take way too long for the interactability, and it seems like I have some weird delays here. We also found a potential solution for the rubble teleporting all over the place. Gabriel has been deep down into the rabbit hole of a lot of the rubble mechanics and spawning and everything surrounding it, and he may have found something that helps it a little bit. So hopefully we should see that deployed to the playtest and test that out as soon as possible. There we go. Maybe. Wonder if I cleared it enough here. There we go. Now we can build it here. And I just need to see here. I'm probably not gonna be able to claim it until I've gotten the house. Yeah, I need to move the stockpile in a bit, but I also need to dig out the dirt and shuffle things around, so that's hopefully good. Also notice not getting teleported into the caverns all the time. Was that fixed? I'm not gonna say fixed, but it was at least adjusted and hopefully not causing much problems. And as you can see here on the rubble, what happened with the rubble is the actual rubble pieces were incorrectly set inside the prefabs for them. So all rubble is spawning underground, and some rubble got kind of freaked out by the system that handles objects that falls under the ground, which then caused them to teleport incorrectly to the wrong position because of the sheer volume of things that were happening. So there should be something coming in to kind of adjust some of that as soon as possible. And that should mitigate it / reduce it to as much as possible, and we'll see if it's a permanent fix by evaluating the playtest and making sure that the rubble is behaving the way we want it to. But yeah, so that's, we're making significant technological progress as well. Spicy tuna roll. Going back to the interactions interfacing, how are the elevators coming? I remember a few times some of the crazy things happening when driving on them. The elevators are actually getting... I want to phrase it. There hasn't been significant input on some of the surrounding systems for the elevators as I'd like. However, there has been a significant amount of work going into like the wooden barges and the bigger boats and making them sync better and work better with vehicles in general. And the changes and kind of things that were done to the boats and the investigation surrounding that physics interactions is fairly transferable to other world object interactions, which means that hopefully Gabriel is gonna be able to take a look at elevators on like post 10 to give them the same kind of quality pass as we did with the boats. So they're gonna be a lot more rigid in terms of how they're working with different vehicles. So there's a lot of the knowledge that went into creating all the things and all the parts and making the boats work is very, very transferable and very applicable for all the other aspects of the game. Rubble and vehicle teleporting to 0-0 related to the issue mentioned. So rubble isn't like the teleportation to 0-0 happens because Unity doesn't know where to put things. So when Unity has coordinates and it freaks out on either the volumes of float values or say a rubble like this piece here, it's not properly spawning on top of the world, so it's infinitely falling, and for each segment of fall, so it like falls to the bottom of the world, teleports back up to the roof of the terrain, and then it doesn't get all the way over the terrain, so it falls back down here and kind of infinitely falls, which messes up with the positioning of the rubble, and then eventually it'll just be teleported to 0-0 because Unity has no idea where to put it. or it goes like into an infinite negative value, and it freaks out because of that. And that, the reasons for why it starts to get an incorrect position value in the first place is partially because the rubble was incorrectly spawned, and that's what Gabriel's latest things have been revising, to making sure that rubble actually spawns on the tile and above it, and not like in the terrain or away, or you know, something else crazy. So it should remedy a lot of those cases. The vehicles are still a little bit volatile, but we're on a good track to get most of those issues sorted as we're going through things. The vortex of 0-0 is one of my favorite unexpected byproducts. Yeah, the build a house by 0-0 and guaranteed free iron. I think the motto was. And then we have our amazing performant tech wizard Gregorius looking into some of the optimizations, and Jordan also poked his nose into the core networking code. So hopefully going forward we'll be able to do an upgrade the pass on that and make it a lot more smoother. Remember when all the boats going to a boat graveyard? Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. I was watching some of that TLS footage, and I don't know, like, you guys were having a blast, but from the developer side of things, watching all the absolute carnage and mayhem with the extremely early versions of the boats was quite daunting. And it was a constant fear of, like, I hope people are not assuming that these are gonna be, you know, this is gonna be the quality of the released boats, the way they're behaving. So, you know, it was interesting, but it was also a lot of fun to watch, because, you know, you guys are fantastic of making most ridiculous situations look like they're half intended, and just having a blast doing it. So, you know, kudos to an amazing YouTube / you know, the whole Twitch RP thing to watch. Let's see if we can get this flooring going here. See how big that claim was. It was out here. Let's just maybe leave a dirt row outside for some planting. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Well, let's just leave this line here open. And that'll be that. Let's see, we are starting to get a bit cramped here again. So let's move that and do. Where do we want to place it? I'm gonna have it that way, and we want to do it probably, maybe. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that'll be fine. Let's see if we can't get away with some shenanigans here. We're gonna use some of those some of these dock forms to kind of flip around things here. can't pick a store back up now, or you can do either action. Yeah, you can do either action. It just, I didn't want to pick it up because my inventory is way full, but I can still move the object because I don't have to, you know, empty out my inventory to move things around on my property or shuffle things around. So just another way of doing it. So let's do that, and then we're gonna want some roofs here. Do some corners. Do that as a corner as well. So since we're building, do I want to have that in stone? Maybe do that in stone. So some of the things that we've been looking in, especially feedback wise, some of the really significant things that we have been keeping an eye out is like improving quality of life for building in general, and with all the changes to kind of animations and surrounding parts back and forth, and seeing how everything kind of works and what doesn't work. Luca had I sat down with Luca the other day and kind of looked over building adjacency and some of the quality things, and just like the hurdle of building. So that was something that we did the other day, and he broke it down and did a pass on kind of the mathematical logic for how blocks, like when you're building a block, how it's interacting, what it's trying to use in adjacency with other blocks, and how to make it easier. Can I ask what's happening with the minimap/map disappearing? Do you mean on your end, or do you have a malfunctioning map? So on kind of the quality of life improvement things here, and you know, looking over, revising both our old system and looking over what we want to make and what we want to kind of do to make things be easier to do for building, and you know, what other games in the genre is are doing, and how they're kind of getting around into different problems and what they're doing to alleviate the pains of building. We noticed that like there's a couple of things that we don't really have that others do that kind of make sense. Like if you're looking at, say, just a couple of examples, like Space Engineers, where you have a jetpack that you can be flying around and making kind of like block to surface block easier to place. So they don't have a way, like you have to look at the block and the face of the block to be able to place something against it. You can't place something adjacent on the block and that'll kind of place it next to it. I know there's a couple of building systems that does some of that, but you know, in the example of like Space Engineers, you can't. You have a jetpack, which is kind of difficult to do in eco. You know, in this era of, hey, you know, you're working with stone tools. It's not like we want to do like, hey, you have to wait until you get a modern hammer and you get the technology to be able to get any kind of improvements to your building style. And Minecraft gets around this by being able to like hit shift to sneak, and that'll allow you to, you know, go way above a tile into the air and kind of get around it and kind of place it on the backside to extend, say, a bridge or something. But that really didn't fit well in what we were trying to accomplish. Like it makes no sense for you to kind of sneak up to a corner and then kind of fly almost partially to be able to build it. It works for natural terrain blocks like this, where you can kind of get to the side of it and slide on it. But if you have a flat block, it makes it really difficult to kind of angle away and look over the corner and not fall down and so on. So breaking it down to discussion with like Dennis and seeing, you know, he's talking a lot with the community and the builders of the community and seeing, you know, their feedback and their opinions and getting some sourcing there. And then I sat down with Luca and kind of broke things down and revised really where we want to be going and how like increase the general quality of life. So Lucas set together some cool math that determines whether or not you're seeing a certain surface piece of the tile, and it is now presenting itself in some quite cool ways of building that is way easier than it was, and it's such a huge quality of life for when you're building, how you're placing. So if you're not seeing some surfaces, it'll mirror the block and place it in that direction based on where on the block you're looking. So if you're looking up in a corner, it'll place it diagonally. If you're looking you know, on the side, if you don't see the right side and you're looking towards the right side, it'll place it there if you have your pointer outside. And it kind of works in every single direction. And it is hopefully going to be a huge help to a lot of the really, really cool things people are building. And just, you know, being able to do these more efficiently in a normal way rather than someone that uses like an admin flight mode in a creative world has more opportunities to build these things. What about the build mode where your body's locked in place and you can move your camera around in a radius around you and pick and place up blocks? It's actually something I was tinkering with. I was poking at a mod that does that for Valheim, and overall it's a really big thing to kind of do, but it also really breaks a large volume of the immersion and kind of the interactability of building. It's also absolutely terrifying if you're walking by a place and suddenly blocks starts to pop out of nowhere next to you because someone is building next to you. So it you know, it was on the topic of things that I was looking into when discerning and kind of digesting all the feedback we got from building from all the playtesters in 10.0 during all of these kind of playtests. So everyone that has posted both negative, constructive feedback, as well as you know, all the praise and everything, and all the aspects around it. Once again, cannot thank people enough. It's been a huge help, both in determining how much we want to push things, what we want to do, and yeah, it's been huge. Let's see if we want to do some walls here. And another thing that we are looking into in terms of building is shifting out so everything is rotatable instead of automatically adjusting in a lot of aspects. So if you have any comments, questions, or opinions surrounding that, hop in on Discord, make your voice heard. We always love to get feedback from everyone and be able to get everyone to kind of involved in the process of making eco and making it as best as we can. And we have some doors, drop that down there, and we want to add those in here. There we go. Maybe I should just extend the property out one tile there just to have some sort of garden or something. Yeah, I'll probably do that, but that's... Get some things in here. I'm always in the Discord, you can't shut me up. Yeah, no, you're... you have very strong opinions about some things, and... Like I said, I'm loving the arguments and discussions and everything surrounding it, so, you know. Just more people getting involved is just fantastic. And anyone that hasn't seen the new Hewn log blocks, we've got some cool new dock blocks related themology with some ropes, some end caps for those rope pieces, some new pillars and surrounding things that add some cool ambience to it in different shapes and different forms. Adding some much needed visual some visual stuff to do, like, I don't know, I found myself using them mainly for like mines and whatnot. Are there more block shapes coming out, specifically diagonal, vertical blocks? Diagonal blocks are overall a can of worms to kind of get into, because of kind of limitations versus, not sure what I want to say on it. Just like there's a lot of potential for it, but there's also a lot of possibility for like crazy overhead, and like as soon as you start adding one diagonal block or something, you know, you want to be having 27 different diagonal blocks for every single type of block form, which can kind of get out of hand very quickly. So, you know, more block forms are definitely coming, more block materials are coming. But to what extent and exactly what these are gonna be, you just have to keep up to date on changes and progression on the development as we go along on this amazing journey. Do I want to do... That was a block too far. Yeah. Should probably be using this one. Just show property. Yeah, we're gonna want to claim this, and we're gonna want to switch over this from the house to being. Let's do that. Empty out my hands, and I want to claim this. Since we got the house deed there, we're gonna unclaim this one, and then we wanna switch over to the deed, and we're gonna claim this one. Block vertical. I thought I unclaimed it. Didn't I unclaim it? Maybe I was a little bit too fast. Why is it not wanting to unclaim that one? That is a peculiarity. Oh, I know what I'm doing. It's because I have a bunch of deeds over here that would be not connected to the original deed if I unclaim that one. That's why I'm not getting that. There we go. Now we're in business. We got that one, and then we're claiming this one. There we go. And then this tile here is outside the influence of the town, but that's fine, because what our intention is here is so on the topic of settlements and on the topic of like settlements and general, so for settlements and its cultural expansion, you need to have a cultural value of the property. And the way you get a cultural value for that property is making sure that your property type is not a residence. So previously, all plots were equal, if you will, and all plots were basically residential and didn't care. However, now with the changes to settlements, any foundation plot or deed is going to be cultural by enforcement, because it needs to be a cultural property to grow influence. And that is also the way to expand your town's influence, is switching over this to a cultural deed, which then prevents any housing points from being generated on it. But instead it's using and creating culture based on the same restrictions as you have in housing. So you have cultural rooms, you've got bathrooms, and we've got some more stuff that's planned. But yeah, so a property plot has to be a cultural plot for it to count towards the town. And then you have some limitations to towns, where a town can only have a certain amount of total cultural properties. So you can't take a town and just expand it infinitely across the globe. It does have limitations in terms of how big it can grow. Same thing for countries. Countries have a higher cap, but they're subject to the same thing. So you can never have a worldwide spanning single settlement of the lowest tier unless you change that out in the settings. So if you completely remove the restrictions for the amount of cultural plots, you can just keep expanding it with different types of cultural plots and kind of like keep growing the town. Is there any update of or enhancements of the in-game voice / VoIP? I think we were using the in-game Vivox solution in January, and it has a few issues with quality and range. Vivox is still a thing that we're using baked in. And I believe there were some issues with the Unity version we're using. I'm not really the right person to be answering that, because I am not involved in that part at all. And maybe if you ask Jordan nicely, he might be able to shed some light on that, because we've had some general issues back and forth with it. But Vivox is also kind of standard use in a lot of the applications for it. So it might just be weird Unity things with our specific build that is causing it. So maybe once we go forward with another Unity upgrade, some of those might be resolved. Let's see here, what was I doing? So I wanted to have a dirt layer there, but I also want to have, let's just drop down a wall there. Drop down a line there, and then we'll just build this here. Just so we can kind of get the basic shape of the house done. Choose a block, and then we'll use this, and we'll build it, and then we'll build it, and we'll build it. And this is so fantastic. I haven't really gotten opportunity to build a larger structure with this system yet, but just building like a medium-sized house is phenomenal. So yeah, personally, I love it. Let me know what you think. There we go, and then you're up there, and you're up there. So we'll just seal this off here and get some basic shape here going. So we want to be building up to that point. Go away, shoo. So some of that notification spam is because of the legislation on Tiger that prevents people from using the company mod. Prevents or forces players that are collaborating / playing with each other to be kind of one cohesive unit of things, which deals with the legislation and so on. That'll be a big help with building. Don't mind putting up a scaffold for RP builds, but sometimes you just want it done. You just want to get it done without all the falling off the roof. Yeah, and it's a lot of that can feel. It can feel very minor. In terms of like the general use things, but it can be absolutely astronomical when it comes to a lot of those quality of life things. And I want to do, what do I want to have here? We'll just leave that as is and do like, I want to have a wall here, but that looks weird there. I'll just use cube. Hammer swinging when placing blocks. Oh, you mean when I'm using a line? Or which part of it? Because the line placement one is probably gonna get removed. So like if you're using a form type and you set like your starter block, that thing is probably gonna get nuked. Is that there's still a couple of things that I'm not entirely happy with from just a general use / design perspective. So you know, things are still subject to change. They're still work in progress, and we're still going, you know, actively evaluating some of these things. And there's still a few block forms types that this math isn't completely 100% with, depending on the distance. If I do like this, it can have a hard time placing that top block because of the shape of the hewn. So some of that is still being looked into, and kind of like how and what we want to deal with these things. And one of the things that we were looking at was potentially instead of using the mesh to kind of look at and see where the block interactions is, just use the actual cube the position placement is, to kind of deal with oddly shaped blocks, like in case of like the intersections here for the pillars. So if you would just target this block, it would target the square the block is in, it would target the block. So there are a couple of things that we're still kind of highly experimenting with in regards to like the core aspect of it. Try putting pillars on top of each other from an under angle. Yeah. If we do point placement here, the new system is whole different story of being able to do this much easier. And I know these used to be an absolute nightmare to try to get fit and mash correctly. So yeah, there's a lot of small quality of life things like that we've been looking into and really trying to nail down to help alleviate some of it, and also just general improvements to just make this update as successful and as awesome as we can make it. We have dump all of that in there. Also want to do that. We want to pick up that cart. And then I want to drop down the cart here, and then we can use you there. we're getting forward. Now we can place some of these picture frames down, I think. And now this is actually something that's pretty interesting. How about that? Dennis. Lovely. Dennis almost pushed an update on the playtest as we're doing the stream here. Yeah, so if we pick up the block here and we do this, bam, it still stays because it uses the position. It used the positioning of when it placed, which means, you know, if you place this here, it will obstruct the block, or, you know, it'll be a secret portrait. But yeah, so this is actually the efforts of Art and the art team and Toby being investigating into it, as well as Giovanni, who made the all the shaders and everything that for the cameras and the easel. So it's a bit of an experimental thing. So when you have an object and it doesn't have like a direct background, it'll try to find the position of the block right behind it if the space behind it is occupied, and it'll just slip into place behind it. And this should be working with every single entity that uses a backdrop filler. So I wonder if do we have some decor? I don't think we have some. Ooh, what are they called? I cannot for the life of me remember what I named them. Under shipwright, or is it glassworking? One or the other. Probably glassworking. We have that enabled, but do we have enough of it out? And do we have some glass buoys? That's what I was looking for. No, we don't have any crafted. But basically anything that really is kind of like hanging out should be kind of wanting to attach itself to the surface behind it. So that's also kind of a huge improvement to things. You know, you don't have floaty stuff anymore. And people on the playtest, if you're poking this out, give this a go give it a run for its money, and have at it to see if you can find positions where this thing doesn't obey the rule sets it should be doing, and, you know, kind of freaks out or does any other kind of weird things. But now that we have some back surfaces and we can grab some picture frames, let's grab those two. We can show you off with as you can see here, we can do this, and we can hang. Some of those are incorrectly kind of flipping back and forth. I know there is an open issue about portrait frames being like they're placing themselves sideways, so they're flipping 90 degrees. But I believe it was an issue with some of the entities seemingly not wanting to play nice. There we go. So that's a wide frame, and that's a tall frame, and then a portrait frame. So one of these, I think, is gonna be behaving. So one of them flipping, and then yeah, the portrait stays. The tall one is kind of reversed. So the portraits and like all of the picture frames, you open this up. Does this work for hanging signs as well? This should be working for anything that requires a backdrop. So signs, I'm not entirely sure. because they don't have a back requirement, but I think they should be. It was merged just the other day, so I haven't had the time to test it out properly. But yeah, so you grab a portrait frame, and at the moment, each additional object on the property with the same artist, its value is diminished by 50%. So if you have a whole bunch of portraits, like a bunch of art that's made by the same person, it'll keep diminishing it. If you got multiple different people, it'll kind of keep the value up. So in here, you can just drag that piece in there, and you get the option to enlarge to fill it, or depending on the aspect ratio on the portrait or on the picture. We do this, and let's dump off that property. And it is rendered on them with, you know, all the shadings and everything. So in this case, it is a sideways. It's supposed to be the opposite direction, so this flipped incorrectly. But yeah, so these are shown, and they're in there, they're working. And as I answered earlier to Grumbles in particular, we have a way to import textures from your local machine, so you can actually grab screenshots or photos or images or whatever, and upload them into the game. But when you do that, depending on the server settings, it has different administrative settings to do that. One of them being a size limitation, so you can limit the size of the files that is allowed to upload towards the server. You also have an administrative panel such as this for when someone is uploading an image. At the moment, it's kind of doing it for all pictures being created, which is got some of the cleanup stuff that's happening. So when you upload an image, you can add more moderators as well. So you can add and edit who can manipulate and change and approve things or delete things. You can review, you can check if they're unreviewed, you can check if they're approved, and you can also delete either, if someone uploads the same thing 27 times, you can delete the 26 pieces and just leave the one. Or if someone uploads something inappropriate, you can delete it. When you delete it, it'll kick up a prompt saying, hey, you're deleting this image. Do you also want to kick/ban this user? So if someone is uploading something that they definitely should not be doing and you don't want to see at all on your server, you can do that as well. So that is a path through the administration of the review panel. So yeah, when you do textures, it'll be through the printing press, and it requires paper to print out. And you basically have an upload, like an upload button on it. There is a YouTube stream on it, or a YouTube recording of the stream when we go over kind of the printing press and photos and everything surrounding it. If you want to take a look at that one. But yeah, now so we have some art here, and when you're looking at them, you can rate them. And in a local admin test world, you can rate it because of local like super admin thing, but you can't rate your own artwork. But you can go in here and you can click it. You can download a picture to your PC, so you can go in and check out someone's art and go like, hey, this is a really cool picture, I want to grab it. So instead of having to grab a print screen yourself, grab the image, and then trying to resize it or whatever and lose quality, distortion and everything, you can just download the picture in the native quality of the upload and then post that and use that instead. And then here you can kind of show the different culture yields on the selection of settlements. So, if you want to test out, say, if I place this in Riverborn, how much culture is Riverborn, or how much culture would Riverborn gain from this comparatively? And then, if it's like, ooh, this This settlement has no reviewers for this image, which means it would be really highly valued there. You can try to pitch and sell it for a higher gross value. So yeah, that is essentially this. And then you can also, with the new component for selling things, you can also do things like this, and you can set the currency for euros in this case, and then choosing my account, and then do like 50 or something, and then when someone is looking at this image, they can get the option to buying it, and that'll sell the frame and the image and everything kind of in one go, and it'll drop into their inventory if they have space. So this allows for, and this sale component, I have not added it to vehicles yet, because vehicles require a bit more testing because they contain deeds, which makes it a bit awkward. However, the for sale component is available for all world objects across in general, which means you can place down furniture and doors or craft benches and whatever, and you can set this up on anything, to allow people to buy objects in the world, while having them placed. So you technically don't need a store to be able to start selling things in terms of like world objects. So like your initial crafting stations that you craft, if you're a logger or a carpenter or, you know, a miner or whatever, you can just sell them out on your lawn, basically. So I guess you can't buy a town. At the moment, it's not. Yeah, yard sales, basically. It is behaving a bit. It is a bit misbehaving when it comes to stakes, because of it currently doesn't really check if you're allowed to own property inside that deed, or some of the other kind of like civic, structural and architectural systems that are in place that prohibits you from owning like deeds in multiple towns when you're a resident of another, and back and forth, so on. So there's still a couple of things that needs to be tested for that. Does it sell the actual item so it moves, or makes a copy? It sells the actual item. So the user that buys this picture gets the picture item as well as the frame, and it deconstructs from the world, and gets placed in their inventory. So, you know, adds more possibilities, and just more levels of depth to interactions in the world of the game, which is something that is something we're really pushing for. Just more things to do in the world, outside of just kind of like collect ore, jump around, collect, you know, carcasses, and rinse, repeat, XYZ. Kind of went all over there, so we want to do that there. So this is, for example, a good way to kind of use that move function, because otherwise I'd need to open up the UI. I would need to pick up the the picture item, like grab it out of the slot, and to be able to pick the painting up. So now I can just move it initially. Is there going to be changes to rep calculation compared to version 9? Culture gain from rep was changed between the first and second SEO test. I'm wondering if that was intentional. Yes, what happened with that is that the network, basically the network multiplier was applying to pictures, which meant that the reputation boost you got from just having like different people adding reputation to it just scaled really quickly. which was very unintended. So now it is completely additive. Which is then also a lot easier to kind of adjust in terms of balance for like how much culture each player can contribute to the world per day, what like limitations in like how quickly can a player or a town accrue enough culture to kind of generate a country, how much of these restrictions and so on. So culture just benefits from relative culture without the network bonus. Yeah, so it's just pure additive from, you know, you don't get more from one player versus another. However, you do get, there is a volume, there is kind of a scale in it for the user's reputation, as well as the actual reputation of the image versus if it's like inside your town, different artists and so on and so forth. So there is still a couple of dynamic values in there that does affect it. Let's do that. But it's a lot more predictive now when you're looking at it and you're giving it points and you're seeing the value of it, which was also a big kind of an issue for the end user. It was just way too hard to deduct whether or not, like, how much each point would add to the total value, which made it kind of difficult, and that's not really what we were looking for with that. The other big change that happened with that change is also that previously on the first iterations and a couple of the early iterations, culture, it was pretty fun acting as a culture warlord with Cat on the first Sea Otter test. Yeah, one of the issues that we resolved by just kind of reworking how initial culture is gained. Maybe I'm building a little bit too high here. Kind of hoping to have one. Yeah, I think I want to do that. So one of the issues was culture had a default value in the settlement foundations, which was removed during the last Sea Otter playtest, which made instead of the foundations and the starting points for the towns having kind of a start culture value, they have a direct influence base value instead. So if I'm looking at, out of an example here, so if we grab a town for instance, you see a town needs to have an influence value and a base value to kind of be a town. And what we had was, we do that and we're looking at the city hall for example, you see that the city hall is generating 141 influence radius versus the group deed, which is the plot I'm on right now, is generating 0 influence value. And the city hall is having that base influence radius from foundations, which means it has a guaranteed influence radius from the start, regardless if it's enabled or not, just as a town is, just as the foundation is existing basically. In the first iterations, we were using, the foundations had a base cultural value, but cultural value is applied from housing. And that made this base value dependent on the housing material type. So the base value that you got from the start was actually more worth once you started upgrading your house, which was very contradictory to what we had intended for it. So me and John had a lengthy discussion about how we kind of wanted to proceed to make it more scalable, make it more sense for the player. And we agreed on having, instead of having the culture on the foundation and the starter pieces, just use a base flat value. That would be easier to balance and easier to kind of deduct for players to see how big is their influence going to be, because the influence is tiled. So an influence of 125 is going to be 125. So in here, it is basically the point of origin from the foundation in a radius out to the edge of that point. The exception is if you have multiple towns competing and clashing, then the strength of the culture and kind of the total value is going to be shifting the borders back and forth depending on which one has the higher. Which I'm running out of food here, so let's see. What am I looking at? I'm looking at markers. That's what I'm looking at. We got Serenity snacks. And I don't need to show this in the world. See if we got some food here to buy. Support the local business. Except the local business is completely out of stock, so I can't support it. That's unfortunate. Do we have another food store nearby here? So we grab the economy viewer, we grab food, we just select everything. And we go by distance. And we check out what the nearest distance seller. Here you go. Eat to live. That's very straight to the point. And then we got Matt's carbohydrate, I guess. Food for paper. That is some very expensive salads. Yeah, let's. I mean, it is starting to be like tier 2 food, so that'll make a dent on the wallet. So one of the see, look at this. I really like it. Making those kind of homesteady, ranch-looking things. Adding some fencing around here and some other shenanigans. I really love the creativity people are using different types of block forms for, and just like, just look at this. Beautiful. Absolutely amazing. Continue along the stone path here. Let me trek over the hill. But yeah, no, it's been... you see the date now. That's the goal. That's the deadline. And if someone has looked at the social media post as well, if not Discord, we have a new coworker with us that is handling all of the social media and kind of marketing things, which is Ryan, and he is gonna get very busy with general promotions and some of the streamer stuff and surrounding things. So keep an eye out for him and see what he's up to. Let's just add one of these each first and see if we like them. Ooh, there was a horrible one. Which one was horrible? That was horrible. So those were okay. We got some sausages. We got some campfires. We can probably do like let's do like 30 of those, and let's do the 8 of those, and then like 10 of those maybe. Not enough room. Of course I don't have enough room. What was I thinking? I don't have the slots for this. This is what happens when you... I don't have the weight for it. I should buy a cart. I have a small cart, but I don't have a cart. Yeah, no, thank you for participating in the chat and taking the time to hop in and take a look. Looking forward to seeing all the crazy things the game streamers are doing as well, and hope to see you around, either on this end or on your end. Gonna be fun. Gonna be cool. Oh boy. There we go. Getting a little bit of a frame drop there on the loading, but it's also me sprinting like crazy and having the maximum distances on everything switched up. We're gonna be heading over there. Yeah, it's going pretty good. What are we up on now? We're up on 3.5 hours. Going pretty dang good here. We got some new food and going around. Loyalist, how does Twitch voting exactly work and limitations? So there are a few things in there. One being when you do this, so if we open up the government tab, so the Twitch voting works in the way of, or rather like the core kind of system setup for it is there are some server settings that allows it. But in the election process, which is what kind of handles and controls it, this is, you know, your kind of how you set up the election. There's a couple of basic ones, and then there's the Tiger can have a whole bunch of different types and variations. But basically, the Twitch one is set up as if it allows the Twitch plugin to be used. The tooltip wanna stay there. You have this Twitch non-subscriber voting weight, and then you have subscriber voting weight and a maximum percentage. So you can set up like how much of a complete total capacity the Twitch audience has availability to vote. So, you know, even if everyone votes yes to this, or, you know, to whichever specific thing is going on, you can limit them to like the total percent contribution. So say, you know, 10%, then if you have 10 people voting, then the entirety of the Twitch subscribers or non-subscribers that are helping out and voting on this thing is never going to exceed one player, because that's the total capacity of that election. But then you can also tweak how much of a weight in comparison does a subscriber have versus a non-subscriber, and if it's available at all. And then this plugin, which Jordan is working on and getting out there, is having its own kind of interface, and it'll be displayed soon, I hope, in terms of how it's looking from the actual Twitch side of things. It has its own kind of panel, and you can see statistics and whatnot. But that's kind of how you enable it. And then you have this election type that you just reference when you're making a law or executive action or whatever else, as with anything. So, you know, you set up a law that uses this election type, and then that election will be having these values available to it. And then the way it's linked to the streamer stuff on the back end, poke Jordan about it if you have any general concerns or questions. I think I should probably push towards him. Oh no, you're tied to one. So I can't remember exactly how it worked in the backend, but it'll check. There is a token transfer there somewhere where it can ID, you know, which streamer you're voting on, and not allowing kind of duplicate voting and like so on and so forth. So there are a couple of limitations in there that allows you to do that, and there's also like a master setting for the server that handles it as well. Why is it being? It's doing some shenanigans here right now. Not entirely sure what it's up to. But yeah, so we're just gonna drop a roof on this bad boy, and we basically have our house that houses some pictures, and then we can extend it a little bit. Just add a staircase here for now. So this is also a thing that's added to all of the things. So if you're looking down, it'll just build a line. If you're using a line pole and you're extending it forward, it is gotta be trying to make a staircase diagonally, up or down, back and forth. So if I do this here, for example, and I have it really doing something funky with loading. I might have to restart the client here. It is not liking something. So as you can see here, it's building that straight down as expected. Go it sideways, it's building that sideways. But if I pull it forward, it will try to build a staircase diagonal. And this is done with any kind of angular staircase block thing. So it does this for ramps, it does this for like single block ramps as well. Does this for like the half slopes and the asphalt blocks and everything around it. So that's an additional kind of quality of life building thing that we threw in. But it is really brutal. I don't know what's going on here. Then again, Dennis was saying he wanted to push an update, so maybe there is, I don't know, if there was some performance improvements to the data handling and size handling of the image frames. So you're saying if it'll do all 4 parts of ramps at one time? Yeah, that's the ramp thing for asphalt has been a thing in the past. So it is doing that since like 9.4, I think. But now it's also expanded onto anything I've set as a diagonal kind of block. So any actual stair/slope block should be doing it. And if I missed one, just hit me up in a DM on Discord and I can fix any that snuck through that isn't affected by this. It really doesn't like me. maybe the server is having a bit of a stroke. Are we behaving now? Maybe. So I wonder if I just want to do... I just want to do that. Can I do this? No, it's gonna be one tile up too far. So there is still, you know, some limitations to what is there is that, you know, you have that 4 or 5 tile limitation. I don't want roof, actually. I want to be able to make this multi-story, so let's use the floor. You still have some limitations to things like maximum distance to build things, which is 4 blocks, I think. So your position plus 4. But yeah, it's been crazy, and we're getting there. We're on the final stretch to getting this out. We still have a bunch of civic issues that keeps coming up here and there as we keep using and finalizing these systems. And if you have the opportunity, you know, hop in on the playtest, give it a whirl, see what you think, drop some feedback. And do I want stone around there on the outside? Probably, but do we have enough stone to do that? No, so we'll do that once I rebuild for the rest of the way, I think. Vad du menar att du har? I heard a rumor that someone has materials to buy here. Where is that store? That store is on this side, on the highway side. Look at that. Amazing. Huge quantity. But yeah. Kan inte köpa det för att det är residency-grejen. Need to fix that. Probably. So I'm a resident on that, and I still have access to the store and things, so I can't purchase straight out. But I can put up a buy order in my store if I add a little roof in it. 0.6. Probably want to remove that. I don't have any. So let's do that, and then we just link this to a stockpile. And then we want to add that back wall so the store goes on. And then we should be starting to look pretty good. There we go. This is a room, and this is cultural room. Actually only wanted to apply the fix that causes companies to lose their claimed properties they will never restart. Yeah. I mean, that would be nice, probably. But There we go. I'm happy with that. And then we have a little store here. Hmm? Hopes and dreams. Nu kan du sälja till mig. It's not pretty, but it's something. Probably hop in and beautify it. Spend some time tomorrow and just cleaning up the property a bit. But yeah, I think we shifted out our priorities a little bit. We've got that oak forest going there, and we'll do some farming by the next time. Get some crops up. Check in with our neighbors and get some civic stuff potential. See what we want to do and what we want to build, and help out with the town hall, just to be able to get more stuff in there. But yeah, it's been fun showing off some of the new -5 culture box house. Yeah. Do I a loyalist there? Do I get away if I craft some? Let's do that. Let's go to the workbench here, and we want to do some link. Do I have some logs? I got some logs here. Let's grab some of those. Grab those and do like 4 construction posts. Place them in front, and I'll place those around the house, and then we can figure out the sign and just place like a under construction sign in front of it. Can't give me negative points for house that isn't complete yet, right? Sold this, okay. Yeah, I also got sold some materials here so I can keep building. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait for those to be completed, and then I'm probably gonna call it an evening here. Dig out some of this dirt to be able to get this stockpile placed on properties. It looks better than anything I built, to be fair. Well, I mean, it is kind of interesting because you don't necessarily need a whole lot of things to make it look more than just a box, if that makes sense. And cat just woke up after their nap. Ja, så säger du det, va? Ha. I don't know. I'm not sure how much you can hear her, but she's being very vocal when she wakes up. Cat helper be helping. Yeah, she'll. I think she's been on stream once or twice in the last couples. Ska lägga sig där. Diggy. I'm pretty sure she's been on stream. Har hon inte varit med? Hon har varit med. I mean, not recently, but she just parked herself. There we are. If I move this away. Ah! She's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? This is tormenting. I didn't ask to be here. Take me away. It's like, yeah, I'll park there. Hold the report. Yep, protesting, don't want to be here. Sitting straight in front of the keyboard now. No. Yeah. Yeah, they are amazing creatures, and they're absolutely fantastic. In particular, so when they find out that they have a tail that really needs to get washed, but the tail is never sitting still for them, so, you know, death to tail while they're flipping around in circles. Freaking hilarious. Let's grab that house. Now that I'm a member of the town, I don't need this fluctuating weird thing going on here. So let's just unclaim this, unclaim that, unclaim this. And we don't need that, and we can pull this in. And that can be unclaimed. Oh yeah, and then if you're trying, like if you have your town or your homestead or properties inside here, quite audible meows, it will tell you that you're not allowed to unclaim further than the limitations that you have. Like you need to be 50% inside the parent settlement, otherwise it won't let you unclaim. Same thing for like trying to claim outside of that radius, which will prevent you from doing that, because claiming there would put your property way outside or at a higher value outside than what it thinks it should be. So that is something that players are going to have to tackle in terms of general complication for compared to before. And it also has some pretty significant gameplay balance perspectives and tactical perspectives that people have been using. Like one of the a favorite a lot of the meta gaming does is like bigger groups coming in on a server, and then they immediately kind of waste a few claims to claim like the best oil plot on the map. And now, because of how the settlement system works, you can't have like a homestead outside of a settlement you want to be a part of. And the only way for a player to acquire more property is by being part of a town or a federation or you know, whichever layer of settlement you're in. Which means if you want to claim things way off on the map, you're also going to have to live there for a good portion of the time while other, you know, while kind of the infrastructure is being built and tech is being progressing. So that's a big change that players are going to need to deal with one way or another. Now that 10 release is announced, does it mean it's in feature freeze, or is there still something major coming? Now it's pretty much in like 10 has been pretty much feature complete for a while. It's just been like a couple of things that have been ticked to make sure to get into 10 that might not have been completely complete. But yeah, everything generally is pretty much done in terms of functionality. Now it's just bug squashing overall. So, you know, there might be maybe some Hi. Maybe something pops up as like, hey, you know, we really need to get this in, as this little thing will just improve lives tenfold. Then, you know, we'll probably chuck that in, depending on what it is. Kind of like the building revision thing we did, just to make sure that we're increasing quality of life of general building application, and things like that. Is this stockpile actually under my legislation now, or it doesn't really look like it is. It's on unknown property because the claimant is over there, so I'm still like 2 tiles short, so I need to dig out more of this mound. Just trying to make sure that all of my stuff is claimed and on my land before I'm hopping off for the evening. But yeah, it's like I said, it's coming along. It's doing great. I do have one more. The reason why the large lumber stockpile isn't claimed is because the placement kind of determining tile is here, which is outside the radius. So I think a confusion here is that my property is red. Let me just switch that out to like do teal something. If it wants to actually change out the shader for it, or if I need to unload it and load it again. I might need to just reconnect to make that properly update. But basically the red thing here is outside the radius of the town, so I can't claim there. And the stockpile's determining tile is basically this thing here that I'm standing on right now, and that is just like 1 tile further out or outside. And that is something that we are kind of looking at and have been looking at in terms of world object placement rules and legislation, to make it behave better in terms of like determining where or how the object has to be placed to be claimed completely. And kind of make like either be like a percentage or that the entire thing needs to be claimed. So that will be, it'll be a future thing that it might get fixed and polished around. Now is the perfect time to rally troops to get Vicky. I think mechanically, yeah, probably. There are still gonna be some tweaks to recipes, most likely, as those kind of get updated and tweaked weekly until actual release. So those might be a bit wonky to kind of keep. Well, yeah, I can just rotate the stockpile, but kind of want the whole thing in there anyway. Just squeezing in more dirt here so I can use it for terraforming later. And yeah, so as Armored was saying, I can rotate it because the deciding factor is a single tile here. Well, because it's even, it rotates with the object. So I can do this and it'll just kind of switch over on the right side, but makes sense to kind of squeeze it in more on the claim because I want this to be, well, excavate the whole thing downwards later anyway. So there we go. Now we have that one in on the claim. We can grab some of these materials and switch over and drop them in on the stockpile instead. So we have a little more control over the area, and it looks less catastrophic. And now we have our construction posts as well, so we can grab those. When we're in on the deeds, we can add there we go. Properties under construction. Now this is just in tier 1 materials. We'll have to do a pass and kind of shift this around into tier 2 later, and then upgrade it to all the way up to tier 4 to get the most out of the value for the cultural stuff. So yeah, I think we'll probably round it out here for tonight. Hope everyone had a good time. Hope everyone is looking forward to the release and all the new changes, content, and improvements that we've done. And thank you all for watching. And I will catch you on whenever I'm on next and you're around. Probably, hopefully soon. We'll see how frequently we'll keep running in this playtest. I'll keep streaming throughout it, as I said last week, and just chill out and just do our thing here, see how we integrate with the economy. And I also think it's important to kind of run these, because I'm not doing, I'm not in on the server wildly, crazily, progression. Like I'm not on daily. I hop in and like eat a piece of food just to keep the skill gain up a bit. But just kind of using the economy and looking at the economy and what's been changed since I hopped in last time. Kind of showing that depending a little bit on what profession-wise you want to do and how involved you are, it's not a catastrophic thing, not being able to play daily. And it is extremely codependent on like general governance and other people's activities, and if the economy is set up, if you have kind of a universal basic thing that distributes currency slightly to people that need it or may not be as active and so on, like Tiger does a lot for just casual players. And I'm hoping that now that we're granulating settlements into more tiers, even if the entirety of the server may not like certain like laws or implementations and so on, that we have that tier of settlements that allows local bodies to do it, so they can implement their kind of local currency distribution and doing their own thing, and integrate upwards throughout their playthrough, rather than say Armored Stone as just chatting. You should play on that speed when we start next season. But like if he's super active and I'm not, and then he decides that since laws previously were globally elected, which there still kind of are if it's revolving a federation where more people are encompassing the whole planet. But now you can do that on a local scale where, if I want to add a district that prevents people from picking wild plants in my area, but paying people if they're planting wild plants in my area, I don't have, if I'm over here, I don't have a guy living like Ubold here doesn't get to vote on whether or not to allow me to pay for people picking plants here. or you know, planting plants or picking plants and taxing things or paying people, because that was one of the big hurdles when it came to the old civic system, where, you know, if you wanted to do something in this area and you wanted to improve the lifestyle, or you want to pay for building roads here, then the guys over here could just say, no, you can't do that, which is gonna be a significant change in terms of how these things can grow dynamically on a server. So yeah, looking forward to seeing a lot of that, and like I said, I'll catch you whenever I'm streaming on next time. I'll try to keep this up somewhat frequently, at least until the end of Tiger, and then we'll see what happens. Ryan is probably going to be doing some stream hosts, and do some more social media stuff and do some more outreaching there. So it's gonna be a wild ride and crazy time until release. It's gonna be a lot of crunching on my end. A lot of work for the team to make sure that we hit that deadline and catch it. And yeah, I have a question, was meaning to ask. What's to make someone living that wants to live in a settlement? What's to make someone want to live in a settlement with taxes versus living in the middle of nowhere? Well, like, property limitation is the big one. Like, if you're living in a homestead, you can only claim up to the limit of the homestead, which is 16 on default at the moment. So move this into solid land so it's properly placed. Come on. Needs a bit of a restart to update. Like I said here, my homestead here, I can only claim 16 claims, and that's the end of it. Like, I cannot add more plots to claim here unless I'm part of a settlement. So this homestead, as I'm part of this town here, and we have the, where did I put it there? We have this one here. As we're part of Serenity Grove, I can claim 14 tiles here. I can grab these claim papers. That tells me, you know, it removes the amount I can claim in total. But because my homestead is part of Serenity Grove, and it really doesn't like me because I moved it around. There's still some slight issues with the movement thing. Now Luke is working on it. But it's basically, I can put those Serenity papers in here because the homestead is tied to the same settlement, and now I can claim more plots because I've added papers and kind of upgraded the claim, the homestead stake. So that's your kind of hard limitations. If you're completely outside settlements, you will not be able to claim more property than what the server has set for the minimum or the maximum value of plots for the homestead, which is by default 16. So yes, some industrial crafting professions could do that, and they could stay off, you know, they could stay off the beaten path. But I know Armored, you probably noticed this as well. Like, if someone has a food store next to you versus someone that is slightly cheaper because there are no taxes and he lives, you know, 15 minutes away, you're most likely going to be buying from the guy closer, even though it's slightly more expensive, because it saves you up on travel time, especially since food is kind of bulky, weighty. Crops to sell it is a lot more weighty now, so you can't carry, you know, 1400 corn to sell to the chef just to dump it and buy food from him. You're gonna need some sort of infrastructure to carry more than 200-300 crops. So there's a lot of other kind of layered restrictions in that system that just disables some of those cheesiness. There's also the issue of who pays the taxes, where's the taxes being paid, and you know, you can also subsidize certain things in your district as well, or in your area. So, you know,
there's that. Anyway, call it a night there. Hope everyone has had a good time, as I said, and catch you on the next time. Take care, have a good evening, have a great weekend, and see you later.